Good evening. My name is Latrice. I am doing assignment number 1 in for my class DLT004, and I chose the Hebrew word Mikola, and which simply means a dance company of dancers. I will come from Exodus 15 and 20. And the main verse is when it says, Then the prophet Miriam, Aaron's sister, took a tambourine in her hand, and all the women went out after her with tambourines and with singing. And if you go down a little further, it says in 21, And Miriam sang to them, Sing to the Lord, for he has triumphed gloriously. Horse and rider he has thrown into the sea. And if you went back up, it talks about, you know, exactly what was going on. And it's how together, I'm going to say together, of course, God uses Moses, Miriam, and Aaron, but he uses Moses to lead the people of Israel from slavery in Egypt to the promised land in Canaan. And then after crossing the Red Sea, and you can find that in Micah 6 and 4, after crossing the Red Sea on dry ground and seeing the Egyptian army overthrown in the sea, that's when Miriam leads the women with the tambourine, worshiping God with song and dance. So, again, that particular Hebrew word is Mikola, a dance company of dancers. So let me give you a background, just a little background on Miriam. And I chose this because I love the fact that she was an older woman. This was not a young woman, you know, a teenager, not in her 20s, 30s. This was an older woman. But when they had come through, she went out and took that tambourine and began to lead. The women began to follow her in singing and dancing. But a little bit about Miriam. Now, they don't say her name at the beginning. They just simply say Moses' sister. And it's when Moses is born. Pharaoh is, he decrees that to throw all the Hebrew baby boys into the river. And you can go to Exodus 1 and, and 2, and it talks a lot, give you the background on that. But Miriam is out. She is her brother's keeper. She's out and she's watching, and she sees Pharaoh's daughter discover Moses, and she quickly intervenes and she goes, hey, do you need someone to nurse the child? And then so of course Pharaoh's daughter was like, well, yeah. And so Miriam goes and gets the mother. And so this didn't just, God was preparing her even then, even at that time, preparing her. And I love her story because it's not just, and like I said, they don't say her name. And so, it's funny. I think about how times in our lives where it's not about us. It's not about our name. It's not about anything that we're doing. Her name is never mentioned, but it talks about what she does as her brother's keeper. God needed her to do something, and she did it. Then if you go down after the part that we're going to talk about the dancing, she gets caught up in some drama, in some mess, where she begins to complain, where her and Aaron began to complain. And she ended up sick. because God became angry because she was so willing to speak against Moses, his servant. So she was struck with leprosy. Aaron saw this and he repented, got himself together. Moses prayed for her and she was delivered. She was healed. This is just kind of background on who Miriam is, not just this stickler of doing everything right, because, you know, at the beginning they said the prophet Miriam. And so I kind of want to give a background on Miriam was a human. She was a woman that did in areas where she was given direction, but also fell in areas that she should not have fallen in. So that's kind of a background on Miriam. So now I want to go to where God uses her, where she comes out, and it's like, oh wow. So we crossed this Red Sea. And what's so amazing to me is they were not, she didn't do this beforehand. It was after. It was after. And we know dance. If you look at the word dance, it's just the movement of the body. It is usually with music, but it doesn't have to be with music. Expression, emotion, releasing energy and taking delight in the movement itself. So when they had come across that Red Sea and miraculously coming across the Red Sea onto dry ground and seeing the Egyptian army overthrown in the sea, man, I'm telling you, it was like Yahweh. Now, and this is not mine. I commentary where it says Yahweh's deliverance of the Israelite people and the destruction of Pharaoh's troops at the Red Sea is when Miriam leads the women in dancing and celebrating Yahweh's victory. And it says that, excuse me, it was a way used of reenacting the battle that Yahweh had fought for them so they could remember his deliverance. And so when she went out with the tambourine and the women came before her, they were reenacting wow, we have been delivered. Did you see what happened? We were saved. We were delivered. We miraculously crossed the Red Sea, but the Egyptian army was overthrown in the Red Sea. And so what they did is began to take those tambourine and they began to dance as a company of dancers, not just her herself. It says in verse 20, it says when she went out, in verse 21, 20, when she went out in her hand, the women went out after her. And 21, she was singing to the Lord. He has triumphed gloriously. Now, she didn't say they triumphed gloriously. She said he has triumphed gloriously. And so what they were doing is worshiping Yahweh. They were worshiping God because he had fought the battle for them. They didn't close the Red Sea. They didn't do any of that. So what she was doing with that tambourine, she was magnifying Yahweh because he fought the battle. The scripture says in 21, for he triumphed gloriously. So anyway, and so again, they the word makola, to dance, a company of dancers. So all of them, they took those tambourines and they began to reenact what happened, and they began to glorify because of the salvation. And so this was passed on. It didn't just stop there. It was passed on. It was a way of remembering. It was a way of remembering the salvation and the deliverance. Excuse me. And so when I was looking, it said there is no instances of war dances in the Hebrew scriptures that was celebrated beforehand to ensure victory. It says these dances always happened after Yahweh had acted, after he had saved the people and delivered them from the enemy. Because what they did is they reenacted what happened and celebrated about what had happened. Because again, verse 20, she didn't say, we triumphed gloriously. She said, he triumphed gloriously. So that was their way, again, of dancing and reenacting and glorifying the victor, which was Yahweh and not them. So anyway, and so that started. It kind of began a liturgical tradition, I guess you could say, because we do the same. Well, I do after something happens, and beforehand as well. But I find myself after I've come through something, it's God, you did this, and worshiping and dancing, whether it's jumping or moving or, but anyway. And so Makola just simply means a dance, company of dancers. And that is my first part, and I will be back with my 8 count. Thank you.